All right, we're ready to roll. Got a new friend we're going to meet today, Zoe. Let me pull her up on the screen. Hello, Nick. Hello, Mike Fortune in the Zoom room. Hang on, let me unmute you.
Okay.
What's happening, Zoe? What's going on? Pardon my appearance. How are you doing?
It's all good. I'm good. Thanks for having me on, Todd.
I love your little setup there. Is that your office or what? That's
yeah,
nice.
It's like my little virtual setup that I created. You know what it's like when you have lack of space. So I created a nice little spot to do filming from. And yeah, it's my little spot in the house.
Well, I got to tell you.
Hang a minute. Frozen.
I just over, I don't know, 3. Am I frozen? Am I frozen?
No, not now. I'm frozen.
Yeah. Okay. So there may be a little of that, but just stay with it. It'll come back. It's not going to go off.
It's all good.
But, you know, so I think it was last night we were in the hotel. We got to the hotel clock and I was putting up the post and everything. And I put the post up and right away I got like 2 or 3 friend requests and it said one mutual friend, Zoe, you know, and anyway, and then I went to your page and I picked up your energy and like, you know, you've got some strong energy. I don't know. I don't know anything about you, which is what we do here. You know, it's intuitive, creative, spontaneous, you know, imaginative, and depending on what we're talking, a little bit courageous from time to time. But let me ask you this, the famous Soul Speaks 5D question. When did you wake up?
Oh, gosh. 2011. 2011 was when, you know, like you have layers of waking up. It's like in each and every moment we're waking up.
Yeah.
So it's, and sometimes life puts you on your ass to wake you up, to give you a totally different shift. But it was more around
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah, like 2011 where I really started diving in deep to really taking self-responsibility, owning my shit, you know, doing the inner work and being really disciplined about it behind closed doors. You know, the crazy few that were doing the stuff behind closed doors and that whole journey. So I'd say it was 2011. Yeah.
So were you doing that stuff behind closed doors before that?
Yeah, I guess I was. Like I was from, what am I now? I'm 48. So about the age of 30, I had some really big wake ups and I started, you know, started reading. And I think, I don't know, like I feel like I'm back to how I was when I was 3 years old. So it's like already was this powerful creator at 3 years old and doing insane things at 3. And then I forgot. And then, you know, we go through this forgetfulness and then we start remembering, or we have insights. So it's hard to see because there's been so many different layers, so many different chapters to bring me to this point in time. It was, you know, sometimes you need to keep getting knocked over and it gets a little bit harder and a little bit more intense because we're quite stupid as humans in our remembering.
Isn't that interesting though? You know, on one hand, the human is, I don't know if stupid is the right word, but it probably is because we're all hard-headed. But on the other side of it is you know, we showed up and, you know, like we always say at Soulogy, you know, the human is the hero. You know, when this happened in 2011, that's when it happened with me. It was in the summer of 2011. And the same type of thing energetically. It was, you know, taking responsibility for everything that happened, no matter how many traumas and no matter how many circumstances and consequences or whatever they were. did you at that point, were you connecting with any particular parts of the universe, aspects of yourself or the universe, galactic, angelic, animals, divine essences? Was there anything that sticks out?
Very much like trees before that. Trees, and I would always, from a very young age, always put my hands on trees and always felt this groundedness and this connected. And if I needed to have clarity on something, I would put my hands on trees. And, if you said that to people, then they'd think you're a complete whack job. And really feeling connected in nature and the whole, that sort of realm. And I think from a young age, I was really sensitive to people's energies and beings. But then, you forget, or you're told that doesn't exist, or don't be silly, you didn't see anything. But it really came from me from 2011 of, I had a few out of body experiences before that, but more so from such huge trauma of then releasing something, like when I was 18, and then almost like my body chucked me out of my bodysuit, almost like as a safety response. Yeah. So I remember I had my first out of body experience at the age of 18, and watching the whole world go on by, and then being up there and thinking, oh, it actually feels quite nice up here and it feels quite peaceful. And then all of a sudden realizing, no, I actually need to go down and clear that stuff up, and then just being sucked down, like in, and I didn't know what chakras were then. This is like 30 years ago. I didn't know what they were. But yeah, that was my first out of body experience. So,
but isn't that a big part of it? I mean, I love the way you describe it, when you go up and you're watching the world go by, and it feels so good. I've had out of body experiences, one in particular that I remember, and I remember saying, I don't want to go back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so many people, oh no, I got to go back. That's a pretty big challenge, for people. How did you, and how do you handle that?
How do I handle it now?
Yeah.
Well, I sort of go to that place now when I breath hold. So I'm doing a lot of breathing and stuff from, I guess, playing with my nervous system. So whereas before, if I was hold my breath, I'd go into panic mode, like panic room, after like 30 seconds. And then the other day I sent this message to my friend, because I was like, oh my gosh, I just timed it for fun. And it was like 9 minutes, 9 seconds. It was insane. But when I'm in that place of, I feel my most peaceful, I feel, that experience of what it is to feel in bliss. And it feels so beautiful. It feels like I don't even need to breathe, like my cells are breathing for me. And it's the most tranquil, most still place of silence. It's really tempting to be there and stay there. So it's then bringing that back into this reality.
Yeah.
And bringing that in as much as you can.
Yeah, I can totally resonate with that, and it's kind of a double-edged sword, because on one hand, anything that happens, somebody was on here in the last few days, and I love simplicity, and I don't know who it was, I can't remember, but they were saying, you know what, no matter, because I said to him, how do you handle like triggers? How do you handle like the energy coming down? And they're like, you know what? I've done this, I've done that, I've done this, but I just go to this space. And when they said that, I remember, because my wake up was in 2011, and I spent 2 years on the streets by my own choice.
Wow.
My own guidance. And whenever they remember, you know what? That's that space I was always in. No matter what happened, no matter what was going on, I could go to that space, and I was functioning. I was mostly alone, like so many of us. But, and it still applies now. But the other side of it is, we conditioning out here in the real world is to now, especially now, to step up and not just to go out and collaborate and co-create, you know, on different things, but also just to go out into the world
Mhm.
and our energy to go out there and
Mhm.
you know and hold our ground basically and hold our field.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it's an interesting proposition. Now you're also an energy practitioner. You work with
Yep.
people, right?
Yep. Remotely.
Yeah.
Remotely and hands-on. And it's really interesting. It's like the different modalities that I've learned. It's like letting all of that go and then allowing what needs to come through, to
Yeah. That-
getting out the way of ourselves and just keep trusting and yeah, and feeling your way through. That's what it feels like.
how long after the 2011 thing did you start going into doing sessions and your energy practice?
I guess I started exploring different energy things before then, like when I was 31. That's when I first learned about Reiki. So I'm 48 now. So what's that, 17 years ago? And I went to learn this thing called pilots, which then I found out was called Pilates. But that's when I first started getting introduced to energy work. And then it's just this, I don't know, I've forgotten what you asked now. I'm just, I went off on a tangent.
That's the 3D, no short-term memory characteristic. That means you're ascending. It happens to me all the time. No, what I said was,
Yeah.
how long did it take you? How long did it take you from the time from 2011 to actually start going out and, you know, and putting yourself out there as an energy practitioner and working with people?
Really more well, not full time, but that being my calling in April 2017. I was doing it before then, but I was a nurse for 23 years. So I guess I was taking it into my workplace from 2011 into a hospital. But you know, like it doesn't really gel with their system of doing things. So finally in April, I got kicked out and fired. You know, so it was, so I guess I was bringing it into, I
true
was
light
bringing it
worker,
into,
right?
right. It's like, you don't fit in here. Like you're too much of a bright light. And it was a beautiful place to be in, because every time I stepped into there, obviously, you know, there's so much control and so much blame and heavy density stuff in there that every time I'd go in there, I'd be like, how can I just shine my light and how can I impact people by a message? So I guess I started doing it straight away in my environment that I was in. So I often hear that with people when I work with, they're like, I want to get to here. And it's like, well, see your environment of what you have now, because that's your training ground, that's your playing field for bringing all of that into, it's like then you graduate, then it's like, okay, now I remember hearing Jason Estes saying, and that's how I came across you, actually, was seeing him on your show. And he was talking about it, you know, even if you're there and you're serving hot dogs, it doesn't matter. You're there and you're able to impact people on such a huge level. And then when you've learned those lessons that you've learned there, then you then may get forced by the universe to take that leap and get kicked out of your job or lose everything. And it's beautiful when that happens. So yeah, April 2017 was when that happened.
That's not too long ago. And the reason I bring that up is because, you know, find is, you know, activations and such come from conversations like this, where people talk about their own experience, not being the story, but in the relevance and message and lessons learned from the story. You know, it's well, let me ask you this: in terms of like what you do as a practitioner, you mentioned this a second ago, and I found this really interesting over the last you know, probably year and a half, talking to people like yourself, that their modalities and their processes have evolved and changed. They haven't gotten stuck in one way. Have you found the same? Not that anything's right or wrong, but have you, you kind of mentioned it a minute ago, but has
Mhm.
your changed, or do you approach each session individual experience and allow whatever to come through like you were talking about?
100%, you know, and even from whenever I used to step into a room and teach people in yoga, it was this, I get bored easily, so I wouldn't want to be doing the same thing all the time. So I like to
Yeah.
just go in there with my only intention is to be in a grounded state and being present to being able to connect with people, and then being this vessel for them, whatever needs to flow through. And I feel that's one of the most fun places to play. And it's never boring, it's never dull. And that's what I really feel is being in service of getting out the way of how you think it should be. Even all the things that we've learned, it can really keep people stuck in not wanting to step out of the box because they don't want to get it wrong, or they're afraid of failing. And it's like, and I guess when you fall on your face, flat on your face so many times, you realize there is no such thing.
Yeah.
It's all growth.
Yeah. Circumstances and consequences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Circumstances and consequences are the same thing.
yeah. So I feel it's like child's
That's
play.
one of the first lessons I learned. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Now, some people, we have a little bit of a lag, so I'm not interrupting you on purpose,
It's
and
okay.
vice versa.
Yeah.
So, you know, some people, when they connect, especially practitioners, you know, a lot of practitioners have certain divine essences or galactic teams or whatever that they connect to for guidance and direction. Some people describe it as other aspects of themselves, all of the above. What is it for you? And the reason I bring these questions up in the last one is because a lot of people are waking up now, which you would know because you're an energy practitioner and you're probably getting new clients. And a lot of the things that you went through, or I went through, or others went through years ago, they're going through the same thing right now. Do you speak to or connect with one voice, or are there multiple voices? Do you see them as separate from you? Do you see them as part of you?
I see them as being a part of me. We're all a part of everything. So I connect a lot with Pleiades. It's not that I hear voice, it's like I have a deep inner knowing and I trust in that guidance. I often find a lot of my sort of upgrading or DNA upgrading is from simply just looking up at the sky and just allowing light codes. And I've seen light energy ever since I was so high. And I also get guided. I don't know if you've probably heard of this, but earlier this year, I suddenly get told from my regular meditation practice, I used to be very disciplined, let that go. You're no longer doing that thing anymore. So I had to let it go. And then I get guided just to lie down. And then I experience this goo around me, and it's this high vibration goo, and it's purpley green and pinks. And I feel suspended in this goo. And then I've felt it, and I've seen beings all around me. So I constantly feel entourage of beings around me, which feels really beautiful. And then I can feel this high vibration guru and them working on my body. And then I just get put out into this deep, deep sleep for about 20 minutes, 40 minutes. And then when I come round, I'm a little bit giddy. I'm usually giggling. And my eyes take about 2 hours to get back into focus. So I know that we are being supported and we're being facilitated in the more and more we keep just trusting and without making it something or having any attachment to it or any labels, of just being open. And when you get that guidance, especially when you're like, no, I always have a disciplined practice, you may get tested and said, you need to let that go now because your ego has a real attachment to it. So then you die a little bit because you go into this. So yeah, a lot of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's important for people that are waking up too, because everybody in their own way is downloading, you know, pulling down and really, you know, active, but you know, this stuff is powerful. I mean, there's not a human being on the planet that couldn't be challenged egoically by the stuff they're pulling in through infinite intelligence in their own, in their own singular relationship. I mean, does that happen to you? And how do you catch yourself and how do you balance yourself?
I missed the very first part because you froze.
Tell me when you're back.
I'm back. You froze.
Tell me when you're back.
So I'm here.
Okay. What I was saying is okay, well, how do you find it challenging? Have you found it challenging in the past when you're pulling down this massive information and, the human you goes, wow, I'm pretty clever. I'm actually, I'm pretty sharp. How do you keep yourself in check if it's a problem, if it's a challenge for you? How do you keep yourself in check? How do you maintain your balance?
Staying really grounded, like even just something really simple, like putting my hands on the earth, putting my hands on the ground, to remember to notice, what is kicking in, and to not, I think, there's a fine line of, I would find if I started telling people about it and talking about it and there was ego slipping in, because it's very easy for that to pop up, then it would stop. And I found, so having more and more time alone and just trusting in that and not feeling that I have to get any external validation. There's no validation. That I have certain friends, my beautiful friend in Canada, she might be tuning in, and she gets it. So I can say to her, can you just zone through my body? I'm just feeling something. So she'll do some awesome healing on me, and we do this clearing out for one another. So I'll reach out to people that it's easy and I don't need to explain it.
Yeah.
Without the humanness
that's interesting.
coming
No. Yeah. It's very paradoxical. There was a gentleman on, we've been traveling, so I can't tell you when it was, but it was in the last week. And it was interesting because, and I totally respect everybody's reality. Totally. This isn't about arguments. It's not about anything like that. It's actually about expanding. 20 years, 1990. He thought that, self healing, self energy work, I guess, was fake, wasn't real. And I said, that's interesting. And I said, do you go to other healers? And he said, yes. And he felt like that would be the norm, that we would all go to other people. Now, I think everybody's different. I don't know. I'm just curious as to what your take on it is. Do you go to another healer, so to speak, frequently? Do you believe in the self-healing, that people can do on themselves? Do we need other people? I mean, I think this is something that's going to come to the surface sooner or later.
I feel we're going to have a massive input where people need to have a facilitation. They need to be guided. But then I think the greatest thing we can do with people is to guide them to trust and believe in themselves as well. Because we have so many people that are going to be reaching out, that we need to be empowering and enabling others to guide them so they can heal themselves, so then they can go out and heal other people, so then they can be in that power of choice within themselves. You see it a lot in the whole, when you're working with people on a deep level and you're assisting them with not only being able to see their bullshit, but call out their bullshit so they can shift. And we have this industry that's out there that it likes to keep people stuck. And I feel we're in a time of transparency, so people aren't going to be able to play that game anymore. And we're going to become more and more uncomfortable for them. So I believe we all have the potentiality of being able to heal ourselves and heal others. Like, we all have that equal power. Like, it's not something that we lose, we're just delayering so we can allow it to come out. And the more we access it and the more we trust in that and the more faith we have in that, they're like our wings, so then we can go out and be that in the world. And each time we do that, we're plugging into the grid. So even now we're like, people are getting activated by the conversation.
Yes, yes, I totally agree with that. And there's been a lot of talk over the last, I'd say about 12 months, about the yogi guru frequency or template kind of dying, where people are coming into a certain level of awareness where, just what you're talking about. To me, that's a characteristic of well, and the words and the labels, that they don't do it.
No, no. And it's I'm not sure if it's paused or.
To me, that's go ahead. Oh, did
no,
I
no,
pause?
no, go. It
Yeah,
paused,
we're having
so
problems.
I didn't know.
No, yeah. But oh God, I lost my question now.
The guru, you were talking.
But,
you were talking about the guru label.
No, but a lot. Yeah. Well, yeah. A lot of people have been talking about how that's been diminishing. How people are starting to come into more of a place of self-empowerment or an approach of self-empowerment, and they're not anchoring themselves to one individual, one healer, or whatever. And that's not really being supported. I mean, it served us, and it seems to be moving a different direction now. I'm curious to know, with your history and your experience and your journey, what do you think's going on? What is happening? What are we doing here? Is there a mission? What's happening? Are we at the center of the universe? Are we just another story in an infinite journey of soul aspects, or whatever? What's your take on all that?
So I feel that we chose to come back. If I look at my journey and I look at, it was like a training ground. It was all the layers I needed to go through so I could have a deep understanding, to have more compassion, to learn about forgiveness, to truly learn about what unconditional love and what unconditional acceptance of, to then really realize that I am all that as well. And we're playing out these programs of consciousness, and we all come in here with different genes that we're here to activate, to then remember, so then we can come in and fulfill that soul calling. Like the passion that I feel inside, it's relentless, of that it's greater than me now. It's greater than my selfish desires of what I wanted. It's fueling me, and it feels so strong. And it definitely feels like I was at 3 years old. I was like invincible and very independent. And if I wanted to do something, I would just go and do it. There was no question. There was no permission. So I feel like we have signed up. And I can't remember if I read this, but it was, we're learning to remember our forgetfulness. I'm not sure if it was Ram Dass. We're learning to remember our forgetfulness. And in that, we have to remember that even the person that played that role in our life of the perpetrator or whatever it was, were also in another multidimensionality, also a victim playing out another role. And I feel we're here to heal, but we need to do it with ourselves, and then be that, and to keep catching ourselves every time we think it's someone else. It's like nope. Right. It all comes back to ourselves. It's like we're in this holographic field. It's like, there you are. Yeah. There you are. Yeah. It's like, so then you die again. You look at your shadow, and you remember that we're, I think we're doing pretty well. I think we're doing pretty well when it comes to sensuality, intimacy, and boundaries. I actually think as humans, we're actually doing pretty well compared to a lot of the animals in the animal kingdom that my children have taught me about. They don't have any consciousness. They don't have any, it's just, it's pretty insidious. So I think we're actually doing really well as humans. And we came back here for missions. You know what? There's going to be people listening of going, well, I don't think everyone's come back to lead. I don't think everyone's here to pioneer something, or we all play these beautiful, like a colony. We play these amazing roles, but what someone else is playing, that's also an aspect of ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's another thing that's coming up too, real big. The whole thing about there is no wrong or right. There is, only in this realm do we see, darks over here, lights over here, and of course it's a big challenge, and it has been for all of us. I mean, some of us are moving along with it. How do you integrate these atrocities? Some people consider atrocities. I'm not trying to demean anything, because everyone's at a different level of awareness and understanding and integration. But how do you on a personal level, or even through your practitionership, how do you teach, or how do you do it yourself in terms of integrating aspects of, let's just say, the spectrum, dark and light, wrong and right, whatever the case is? Do you have a way to do that?
From showing up with everyone that I work with, or being in my own life, showing up and being really open and allowing my vulnerability to come through, to creating a safe space that people feel that they can just open up. There's no shame, like I'm shameless, there's no guilt, there's no blame. I really feel, and I have gratitude for everything that I've experienced. And that's, I looked at my life, and most people, if they actually start mapping things out, they will see there's a pattern. And when you start seeing there's a pattern, it's like, wow, well, who is actually creating this pattern? And then you start to look at it, which is confronting. And you're like, well, you then start to take some self-responsibility. And when you can do that, you start feeling freedom. And suffering, I feel, is there. I feel deeper levels of compassion, I feel now, and forgiveness that I don't think I would have experienced or been able to conceptualize if I'd never experienced the suffering or the experience of that darkness. So a few people call me like the ferryman. Like, usually you say the ferryman to people and they're like, oh, that's like someone that takes you to death. But I guess I'm a person that takes people into the dark and then brings them out of that. So then they get to do it themselves. Because it's just further from the light.
You are taking them to death.
You need to die again and again and again. Correct. Yeah.
That's right. This has been a really powerful year, and things have moved very, very, very fast, very fast, very comprehensively, as the information, the code comes in. And it's knocked all of us off our feet from time to time. People talk about grounding, like you just mentioned a minute ago. Do you ever get, I mean, just on a personal level, do you ever get hit to a point where you've just got to like step back and you have a go-to that you utilize to bring you back? Like, maybe that's your method of grounding. Is there something that you do on a personal level?
Yeah, I still get overwhelmed. I still have that despair and all of that. I'll do my breath work. Because in that, when I'm doing that, I can feel the numbness and the stuff, because I really feel the densities coming to the surface, and I'll clear it. So I'll take myself away, have time on my own, go into relaxation, do some breath work to release, do everything that I teach, sit in stillness, and get back to basics, mind, body, get on my mat. It was only 2 weeks ago, and I was feeling, adversity in the realness of this path that we're on, and going, my kids watching and just having no idea where we're going to put food on the table, or, that whole 3D stuff, and just going, I just know and trust. And waking up and just, I could not stop crying. And so I dragged my ass to yoga. I said, just get your ass there. So I got to yoga, and tears rolling down my face. And I was like, it's good. I'm just clearing, I'm doing my thing. And then when I walked into the changing rooms, a lady, beautiful lady, turned around to me. She went, "Oh, I'm looking for a relationship and intimacy coach. Do you know anyone?" I was like, "Me." So it was like, from that, it was like everything was divinely timed, of not hiding how I was feeling, but actually just taking myself to what I needed to do, and then aligning with a soul that was also looking. And that, I feel, is happening faster and faster when we trust how we're feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. It brings up two questions, and one being, well, it's more of a comment. I love what you said, because it's like, got it made. It feels, you mentioned, I mean, you've made this transition that so many people, well, many people have, and so many people are struggling to, which is to bring their gift to the world, let go of the 3D. They didn't get fired, and, or maybe they did, but you know what I mean? It's that same angst that comes, and worry and stress that comes. And I love what you said, because you took your tattered human self in its frail and vulnerable state and went to yoga. Here's the gift. I mean, that seems to be the equation. One way or another, let go, or accept and let go of what you want and what it is. And then the prize comes. I mean, this seems to be the new of where we're all, what we're all entering now. Another thing that comes up too is that, you mentioned a while ago, there's been a school of thought, or there's been quite a few people, I would say, that in a certain way about 2020. And that is that all of these people like yourself that have been doing this work, first alone in the solitude of their own space, and then coming out gradually in layers, like you were talking about, that are going to be put to work. That there's going to be a lot of people, a vast majority, let's just say, that are going to need help from these processes and these modalities. So it's really kind of a two questions in one. Do you receive collective, like a lot of people, the people like you are going to be put to work now?
I'm like trying to tune in telepathically, because I'm like, I heard, "Do you receive?" And then you went, "Put to work now." Fill in the blank.
Well, do you in your sessions, do you ever receive like collective intel, or even in your own communion, do you receive like collective intel, like what's going on with you?
I'm feeling like the energy has shifted, and I'm feeling this, I feel we're going, there's going to be this critical mass where so many people are seeking, and it's about, I feel all of what's happening at the moment. It's like this test of how hungry are you? How hungry are you? How ready are you to serve, to just be in that space? And I'm ready to collaborate with other people. And I feel the more and more we're supporting one another in what we're doing right now, and that mutuality and that respect of the people that we're working with. Like I'm saying to people that are coming into work with me now, you're going to also be called into action. So that's why what I'm giving them is like it's like a map for life. But I know that's not going to be needed. That's not going to be needed. And I, had this feeling, and then I heard Jason Estes talking about it, 2024, and it's almost like I've just let go. There's no attachment to what I've created. It's like it will be there for however long it needs to be for, and then that's it. So be it. That work is done, and then there will be something else. Or who knows? It's exciting. I feel I'm excited about it, and I'm really ready for it. And now what I'm finding, because I'm showing up and just being myself, and it's learning how to play that game of, how can I stay in that hunger? How can I stay in, but not in that hunger of, I feel hungry, just this limitlessness of sharing this passion when the abundance is flowing in. And I feel that's what we're learning how to do, and then channeling that. Because when you're learning how to do it from complete adversity, you're like, whoa, like when all that is coming in, look how I can direct that. So it's exciting. What do you feel?
I think there's, well, you know what? The first thing I feel is I don't know anything.
Yeah, exactly.
But I do think that there's certain, right? I do think there's certain trajectory, energetic trajectories. First and foremost, I think that so much, well, let's just put it this way, like the proof or the substance, you know, the measure of what, how we would look at, we succeed or am I being successful or so on, you know, it's changing. And I think that energetically we have done, you know, like someone like yourself, for instance, the internal work that utilities and offering to the collective, uh, energetically the impact is felt at that point, and how that materializes in, the literal experience, I don't know. But one thing I do really resonate with that you said is that I do think in my own right, and I can hear it in your voice, that we're actually being prepared to handle abundance. And like you said, how are you going to retain that fire and that passion and that commitment to serving while you have abundance? You know, it's kind of like you got to shut the old human out and say, oh my God, I got that. Now I can put my feet up on the desk. But I think we've been, you know, we've been being kind of massaged into, you know, the right alignment in order to have the abundance and also serve. So I agree with you there. Absolutely.
I'm feeling this really big, even in the last week, it's been this big shift of, I thought I was serving before. And then what's happened in the last week, I've been really, certain groups or certain people that I'm plugged into, I'm like plugging my energy back into their stuff, like this spark, and then they're sparking back. And what I'm starting to realize, I'm like, whoa, like our capacity to not only be on our mission, but also like activate others that are also being on that mission. So even in the last week, I've had people that are also doing very similar work. Whereas before, in my own arrogance, and if I'm really transparent, I would have this like inner reaction, because it's like, we've been saying a lot of this stuff for like 8 years, or we've been saying it because we had the awareness of it, but we hadn't integrated at that point in time. So, and also people weren't hearing it because they weren't open to it. And then, whereas 6 months ago, I would see people in the same space and I'd be like, oh, I'm doing that. And I was like, whoa, like I'm like biting myself on my ass, right? And it's like that shift from collaboration, of supporting, of how deep the layers of competition are in us, and that we're not playing in that game. And it's this, and it's really beautiful, and it felt really freeing even to openly own that bullshit or that game, that program that was playing out, to forgive my like
I agree. I think that Go ahead.
The judgment, it's like, and I've tuned in, you were talking with Morgan on one of the shows, and you know, you were saying, and I was like, that's exactly what I'm experiencing. It's like this judgment. And when I noticed myself judging, actually calling it out there and then, to just, it's like pulling out the tendrils, the little threads. Yeah.
Yeah, that's, to me, the more preferential word would be patriarchal. And that the patriarchal has affected all of us. And I love the example that you're using, because judgment, competition, hey, look at me. and the fact that, 80-85% of the folks in these circles are women, and you see it happening with the men and the women. And what I'm talking about is, hey, I do that too, and the internal stuff that we don't talk about, that you have the balls to talk about, the arrogance and all that, because I can relate to that in my own right. And it takes a lot of work to get past that. But it's, I think what I really like about your energy, if you go back to that question I asked you earlier, and you went to yoga anyway, you went in a less than, perfect state. And I think that's what we're doing. I think we're actually saying, hey, you know what? I am arrogant, and I've said it many times in my own right, publicly. I am this, I am that. I feel this, I feel that. I'm not okay. Show up. And when you show up, that's when the magic comes in, which
Yeah.
is what you described in meeting that lady,
Yeah.
asking you for a coach. Now, I want to ask you, because I don't want to run out of time, and I want to give you an
Yeah.
opportunity. And
Yeah.
you know, the floor is yours. If you want to
Hmm.
do, and I don't know that you do or don't do these things, but just to give you examples, if you want to transmit something, channel, if you want to do a blessing, or if you want to just talk about a topic that's important to you, or anything you got going, that's
Yeah.
coming up, or anything about your own practice that you offer to people, that type of thing.
So yeah, talking about my passion and why I'm here, and my sole purpose right now in this moment is to be a guide for people to, if they're sitting on the fence and if they resonate with me, to take that leap and connect with me. I'm guiding people through a 3-month program. And from that, we're creating tribe and we're creating community. And I feel that's really been lost in society, especially when you're going through this journey of aloneness, which is a path we need to all transcend through. So yeah, I'm working with men and women to redefine, I feel, part of it as well, and there's a lot of us in this space doing it, to evolving sensuality, which requires us all owning our shadow. It requires us to keep going in, because it's never ending. It's like when you think you're there, you get put on your ass again. And it's a very healing and very transformational state. And I'm like, this is not going to be needed in 3-4 years. It's going to be irrelevant. We're not going to need it. But right now, it's like we're in this pivotal time. And I'm like, if I am still thawing out, from the freeze that I lived in my life for so long, and you get into feeling, it's like when people don't have the awareness, you can't have the awareness of being numb until you start feeling into the pain. And I feel that's what people are starting to feel in now. And I'm committed and dedicated. So it's 2 programs, one called the Potent Masculine Blueprint, one about the Feminine Blueprint. And it's basically guiding people that we're both. And, it's learning how to go inside and do the inner work from our mind, from our body. So we become the alchemists of ourselves. We start to not even take back our power. We realize that we're far more powerful than what we've been led to believe. So yes, that's what I'm called into action, and my door is open to work with as many people as I can impact as humanly possible. Wow. That's my mission.
Very cool. Very cool. I'm curious. You brought up the word sensuality a couple of times, and one of the things that I'm obviously married to a practitioner like yourself who specializes. The bulk of what she's downloaded. That's probably not even true, but the primary things would be sacred sexuality, sacred union, shadow work, which now I understand they're all related. But when you talk about sensuality, and you also alluded that you are a relationship coach, the role of the masculine and the feminine, the role. Yeah, that's okay. I don't like my titles either.
No.
They always ask me, "What are you?" I'm like, "I'm just me." But in terms of there does seem to be, and there is a lot of evidence of this too, in sacred text and so on, in regard to the power. We're talking Kundalini, we're talking sacred sexual vibration. We're not talking porn. We're not talking all that 3D stuff. But there seems to be a physical, it seems to be a physical representation, or at least an opportunity of the potential, the physical representation of the etheric masculine and feminine, you know, be external,
Mhm.
be it internal, the
Mhm.
marriage, the sacred marriage, and that the
Mhm.
power of that.
Mhm.
Um, where do you see the masculine and feminine energetic dance? What is that impact on what we're doing here in this transition we call ascension? And do you think that we're going to see a lot of that in a physical representation in terms of relationships and couples?
Yes, I feel, I mean, if we look at the masculine and feminine energies very quickly, you know, the masculine being that forward force and the feminine being the creative, but then also realizing even more than that, that it's almost like the masculine is like consciousness. It's like holding space, it's holding presence, for the feminine to be wild and creative.
Yeah.
I feel it's about guiding people how to learn how, because that life force energy, like even as I'm sitting here, I can feel it activated in my body, because every cell is just like, and it's powerful.
Yeah.
That is our true power, is learning. And it takes diligence. It takes wise discernment. Prudence is a word I want to throw out there, because I feel that's what we're coming into. We need to be wise in our discerning of how, not only because this energy has been misused, it's being manipulated, or it's being
Yeah.
Because it is so powerful, we're learning, guiding people how to, not only how to access it within themselves, but how to awaken it, and then learning how to control it, how to manage it. I
Yeah.
feel the truest divine union is within self. When you become into that divine union within self, between your, that sense of self and higher self, that, and then being able to be this vessel for consciousness, God, the divine to flow through, and then being able to be with another soul. People say to me, why are you single? I'm like, well, I'm having the best relationship with myself, until I met with another soul that is also on that same level of responsibility within themselves. And then I feel that is where we're shifting to, where the communication, and I've had these experiences with souls on the other side of the world, that I've channeled my energy into them, and we've done a session, and it's not sexual, but it's sensual. Yeah. And they're having a feeling. So I've been playing with this and experimenting with it, because it's powerful. They've felt activated, and they've felt such a deep sense of love beyond the love vibration. So I feel like things like sex and the orgasm, the Pleiades talk about this, how they're doorways for us to remember our natural state of being 24/7. Which is like, it feels like,
Seems to be, here.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. There's a lag. Keep going.
So it feels like I've downloaded poems, and when I write poetry, I'm a vessel, so I'm channeling then. That's when I really channel. So I've written about the cosmic cock. Can I say words on here? Just any words? There's no rules.
Yeah, you can say whatever you want. This is Soulogy.
So, okay, I've had like, you know, the cosmic cock, the cosmic orgasm, cosmic cunt. So I have, and you know, that's what we're really, when we move from the visceral sense and we start moving more out, and that energy starts expanding, we start really understanding how interconnected we are with everything. So sensuality to me is remembering our senses. Sensuality is about remembering our innocence, our wholeness. When we were babies, we were sensual, we touched, we tasted, and we were conditioned, or we learned it was wrong. And that's what I feel we're getting back to.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that's a big subject. And I don't think any of us understand a whole lot about it. But, you know, I can give you an example. Like last night, Morgan and I have been very open about our sacred sexual intimacy, which again is nothing like what it was. But I love your description about the genuine, the innocence, you know, the childlike wonder. last night we connected like we do every night, and I experienced, and this was really with no words. We both just connected and together. I guess it's together and separate. It's all the same. I don't know,
Mhm.
but I experienced stuff in my body that I'd never experienced before, and I've experienced a lot, both in the old paradigm and the new one, which we're just kind of in kindergarten right now. But it was incredible, and I think that's what it is. And it made me wonder. I thought, I wonder, is this going to be? It would only make sense that we would integrate the physical with the non-physical. What I was
Mhm.
feeling was a non-physical familiarity, like for instance, like you were talking about with people around the world. I mean, Morgan and I spent a year and a half doing Herioscamos, merging in the ethers. And then once
Mhm.
we got together, then a slow road has been built to integrate that into the physicality. But the
Mhm.
the feelings that I was feeling were in my body, but they were more familiar to me in the ethers. And I
Mhm.
thought, wow, is this going to be the way it goes? And then I don't know, whatever voice that was, higher self came in and said, it's going to be both, but it's going
Mhm.
to be something you can't even imagine, you know.
Mhm.
But I totally agree with you. I think it's a big subject. It's a important subject, and I think it's going to be something that is going to create some challenges because we have to die and we have to let go,
Mhm.
especially
Mhm.
on the masculine side. The performing and
Yeah.
the manhood and the perform. You know what I mean? I mean, it's all got to go,
Mhm.
and that
Yeah.
that for me was a very hard pill to swallow. But I can tell those my brothers out there that I can see the light, and I've had some experiences, some that I've talked about. But absolutely, I applaud you for making that stand and putting that out there and being open about it. I'd love to
Mhm.
collaborate with you again sometime when we have
I
better
would love
reception. We just got
to.
into town. I haven't gotten everything set up, and but it worked out okay. That was a quick hour. It didn't seem like it was an
I
hour.
know.
So
I want to say thank you and massive love to respect for Morgan as well, from the work that she's been doing, because popped up later into my field and it was beautiful too. So massive for being a pioneer in that space. And it's not the easy path. And yeah, I
mm-mm.
just wanted to honor as a sister and honor you as a brother as well.
Thank you very much, and I'll let her know that because it
Thank
hasn't
you.
been easy. Yeah, yesterday and the day before wasn't easy, but you know what? One
Yeah.
thing that I think we're all learning too is we go through these periods of uncomfortableness and confusion
Mhm.
and whatever. We know on the other side there's a huge elevation. So you're part of that elevation today, and
Thank you.
I appreciate it. And best to you, all blessings to you and yours. Peace out. We'll see you again if you're open to
Thank you,
it. We'll do it
Todd. I
again.
would love to. I'd love
Thank
to be back. Thanks, brother.
Absolutely.